die, they must die. Humble and Fred must die, die, they must die. Humble and Fred must die.
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1762 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Toronto's Waterfront BIA. Check out what's happening on Toronto's waterfront this summer. Blue Sky Agency, the official distributor of Silent's quiet, comfortable, and customizable office pods. Create sanctuary within your workspace. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today, making his return to Toronto Mic'd, it's Humble Howard Glassman. Nice to see you, Humble.
Hello, Michael.
That pause for effect drew me right in there.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a little dramatic. Where did you get that? Where do you get that Edge jacket? That's pretty cool.
Well, a former colleague of yours sent it to me from Ottawa, Sandra Plagakis.
Did she really?
Yeah. I guess she was getting rid of shit, and then she saw it, and she thought, who the hell would want this? Wow. And she thought of me, and it arrived as a parcel, and yeah.
That's a nice one.
Do you have any old Edge gear still? Did you keep any jackets?
You know, it's funny. I don't. I was looking at that. There's one iteration of there was some swag back around that time where that jacket was introduced. I wish I had that jacket, but I don't.
I'll sell it to you for $100.
No, it's fine. No, there was. I don't really know what I have left. I've got a box somewhere in my basement of some Edge paraphernalia along with some Humble and Fred stuff.
Okay, I don't. Some people hold on to stuff.
By the way, is this tone okay for you?
Well, yeah, you sound like a radio guy. Like you have.
No, but I'm tired now. It's like I've been up for 6 or 7 hours.
Okay,
it's the middle of the day.
Well, for the listenership, it's exactly noon right now on Tuesday, September.
No, but I want to make sure I have the right energy for your show.
But I can adapt to all energies.
What if the entire hour or whatever it's going to be? What if I only speak at this low kind of...
I'm fine with that.
All right.
I
maybe it's a whole other side of
high energy.
Maybe exactly. You know, this is what I'm really like. Excuse me.
It's been a while, Mr. Glassman, because your last visit was with Fred in the backyard during the pandemic.
Is that where you and Fred got into a fight?
Oh, that was 2019. So, okay. All right, so here's the timeline, okay? The big fight was down here in 2019. Yeah. That's the last time Fred was on the show. I
didn't even know what was going on.
Well, do you know now what was going on?
He
threw. I had a camera on us. I have one now. And at the end, he threw it at me and said, "Turn this off." And then he ripped into me. But we met for brunch, I don't know, like a week later. You and I met for brunch, and then I became producer of the Humble and Fred podcast. Like a week later.
Wow.
So that blow up, I don't know what it did, but it opened some valves or something. But that's the last time Fred's been on. But no, sorry, that's not the last time Fred was on, because you both visited during the pandemic in the backyard. I would say that was 2021 that you guys were together in the backyard.
Well, I'm here now, and I'm happy to answer any of you. I don't have much to say.
Well, I invited you.
Here's the thing: I don't have a lot that's gone on since the last time I was here.
2021.
Yeah.
Were you still quiet. On Funny 820 when you were here in 2021? When did you fire radio?
You would know. You were in the meeting where we decided to fire them.
So,
my sense of it was in the early winter, in the winter of our discontent. It was in the early winter of maybe the 21s.
Any regret? I'm curious, as a, you know what side I was on, but you guys had almost always had either a terrestrial radio program, even when you were podcasting, or you were on Sirius XM for 5 years. But now that you're just a podcast, do you wish you still had a terrestrial radio signal where people could hear your show?
No. Next question.
No regrets.
I don't. No, listen, we were all in that meeting, you and I and Fred. You were the one driving that narrative, which we all went along with, which was, what do we need this radio station for? And at the time, we were on. The idea was the idea that we were going to get on more Bell stations.
Well, I don't remember that part. Like, I know that 820 was going to go through some stuff or whatever. And then I felt like it wouldn't cost you a penny and would give you more freedom if you were just a podcast.
Okay, well, so no regrets about leaving it because it wasn't making us any money. They weren't promoting us. And it was a bit of a drag because we had to keep editing the show.
Right.
Into I think there were 25-minute segments at the time. Also,
you can't swear on 820.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I was never really, I don't know, like the swearing thing, the novelty of that for us broadcasters who have become podcasters, I wore off after a time, after a fashion. The first little while, I know I famously said the C word on the first broadcast. Sure. But as far as the language of our show, like even this morning, I think in an hour and 50 minutes, there might have been an F word or two, but not. So to answer to focus on the point of terrestrial radio and what it was doing with us, for us, or what it wasn't doing for us, it wasn't. I never felt it was restricting us so much with the language as it was just not doing anything for us. And you were the one that said, "Hey, do we really need this?" The reason we hung on for however long we had that relationship was, which always made me laugh, famously in the very first meeting we had with the Bell VP at the time, who was general manager of a bunch of stations. At the end, so we're talking about what the terms would be. And at the end, she said, there was a quiet moment, and she said, we're not going to promote you. And I remember Fred and I kind of going, well, okay, is there anything else you can do to sweeten the pot? So let's get this straight. You're not going to pay us. Right. Because it was on a revenue share. Anyway, I think we hung on as long as we did, as you sort of hinted that, we always had a terrestrial association and sometimes. Or satellite. But we always had a radio association. And sometimes from a sales standpoint, I think it helped because it made our offering a little bit more legitimate. In fact, I think you and I even had that discussion at some point that, sometimes talking to certain clients, they like the fact that you're on a radio station because that's something they know and understand. But it never did us. We never made any money. We never made any money from Sirius other than the fees they paid us to be on their station.
So you just disclosed that 820 didn't give you any money to be on their channel, but sorry, actually the disclosure I want to pick at here is actually the fact that they said they weren't going to promote your show. Why didn't Sirius XM promote you as Canada's morning show? Like, why was there no promotion that Humble and Fred are live every morning on Sirius XM? You did it for 5 years.
Well, there was, I shouldn't say no promotion. I think they promoted us on the channel itself, which was Canada Laughs. Right. Initially, the truth of it is they wanted us to be on Canada Talks. That's kind of where they were thinking when they hired us. And, in the end, maybe that would have worked out better for us. We wanted to be on Canada Laughs because our show supposedly is a comedy-based program. Although there are times, you can't tell. So we went with that, and I think that always put their nose out of joint a little bit. And we had a couple of managers there. One of them who was based in Ottawa, had no idea of any of our history, never really liked us that much. I mean, we were okay with him in person, but so there was a variety of factors. I think not the least of which that they never really wanted us to be on that channel. As far as, it's Canada, I often wonder if we had been guys like Opie and Anthony or Stern, and we're not comparing ourselves to Stern, but we can certainly be compared to Opie and Anthony. it would have been a no-brainer to promote us and, whatever brand equity we had in the city of Toronto. We thought there was an opportunity for people who had wanted us to be their morning show again to subscribe to Sirius Canada. But again, it was another great, well-kept secret that we had a show.
Goodness. Okay. So you mentioned comedy. I do have a question there, but I'm going to take a moment to thank everybody who pledged my Terry Fox run, because I did it Sunday morning. So we're talking here on Tuesday. So Sunday morning, I was at High Park, did the Terry Fox run, and I got a note today from the Terry Fox Foundation that I was one of the top 200 fundraisers in the entire country of Canada. So I'm in the top 200. I think that's pretty cool. And it's only because
Can you tell people what you raised? First of all, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so I raised... when I checked in after the run, it was like $5,300 or something.
Come on.
That gets you in the top 200 in this country.
You.
So thanks. Well, I didn't do it alone. Thank you to everybody who pledged the run. I wanted to do that. You mentioned that you guys are a comedy-based program, okay?
Yeah.
So what is the current status of you, Humble Howard, as a stand-up performer?
Great question.
Well, I'm just reading what you wrote for me. Just kidding.
Yeah. Let me do that. Let me do the comedy stuff. I had a gig.
That's a shot.
Not really. Well, I said this on the show a couple weeks ago and it got zero reaction, but that's fine. I just was sort of, over the last couple of years, I've done a few shows. A couple of Septembers ago, I think it was. I opened for my friend Jeremy Hotz at the Danforth Music Hall.
Of course.
Which was very cool. I enjoyed that. But I don't really have the wherewithal. I don't have the desire anymore to go to a comedy club and slug it out and try that hard. I know it seems weird. I've been doing this my whole life, and I had been booked at a comedy club. We're recording this on what? What's the date today? 15th?
September 16th.
16th. So I had been booked into a club in Richmond Hill called Jokers. They had been trying to book me for a long time. And finally, it was one of those things, sort of like mid-June, went back and forth with the guy that owns the club. And I said, yeah, all right, September 14th, I'll do it. Pardon me, I think it was September 13th, the Saturday night. And because when I said yes, it was far enough in the future. I was like, all right, a couple months from now. The problem is when I was doing it 5 and 6 nights a week, which I was doing in 2016, 17 into 18, it was very easy. I could do a gig on a moment's notice, and I was on stage 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, but I was on regularly. But when you don't do it, it becomes I found it's very labor intensive for me, almost as laborious as this answer. But I'm trying to give you some context.
Sure.
Do you understand that, Mike?
Yeah, it's work. It's a lot of work. You got to get yourself up. You got to, it's a thing.
Yeah, and even though it's material that I'm very familiar with because I wrote it, a lot of times people don't realize that when you haven't done it for a few months, and had I done this gig, it would have been almost a year since the last time I did stand-up. And I was starting to think about a month ago, I started thinking, okay, I guess I better start to figure out what I'm going to do. Anyway, I came to a conclusion a few weeks ago. I gave them 2 weeks notice. I said, guys, I don't think I want to do this. And as soon as I said that, I immediately felt better. And that told me everything I need to know about it. In a weird way, I don't really feel the compulsion to do it anymore. And that's why I sort of jokingly announced my retirement from stand-up. I did a corporate gig a couple weeks ago, where I got up in front of a few hundred people and I spent the evening, raising money for a charity and being, somewhat entertaining. I say that because I got big laughs on a couple of things and it was fun, but I didn't have to really prepare for it. And there was no hosting something and then doing stand-up are two different things because the expectations are so different. Anyway, to make this long story, to finally wrap it up, I just felt like I don't have the egoic need anymore to clearly to make people laugh.
Hold on, let me Google that word.
Given this answer, Yeah,
but does it? No, is it simply that it does not spark joy for you, Howard? Like, if it's not fun and it's not going to be lucrative, right? I mean, the hosting gigs might be lucrative, but these, like, Jokers wasn't going to be a lucrative thing for you.
And I'm listen. The last couple of years, I've only done stand up when it suited me. It was never for money. And I still write. I still, there's some stuff that I do with Fred and Dan on the show that are kind of like stand-up bits. And when I think of them, I'll sort of put them in my little stand-up book. I still do that now. And every once in a while, I'll go, oh, like that thing I just thought of, that would be so good for stand-up. Because there's a bit of a difference between the radio or the podcasting style. But I think if I could have answered it much shorter by saying I just don't care about it as much anymore.
Well, it sounds to me, as you know, I'm a big fan of The Wire, and there's a character on The Wire named Cuddy Wise, and when he leaves the game, he just basically says, "The game ain't in me no more." Maybe the game ain't in you no more.
I just wish now that I could go back in time and you ask that question.
Say that?
I know,
the game ain't in me no more?
Yeah, if I could have just come up with that one sentence, hey, Mike, the game ain't in me the game ain't in me no more, and then just stopped. But I've heard this show, and I thought long-winded answers are what you're looking for.
No, I'm looking for the real talk. You know that, but I want.
Well, that is the real talk, dude. I just don't. It doesn't drive me. And when I say egoically, like, for a long time, I've done stand-up since I was literally the first time I went on a stage at a comedy club. I was 20 years old. That's 1980. You weren't even born there.
I was around. I was around.
But like I had to do it. It's one of those things. Like it was in me for a long time, and like I said, I really enjoyed emceeing this charity event, and I made some people laugh, and I got a little bit of I brought a couple things in that are kind of from my act and whatever. But the Saturday when this gig was supposed to happen was a couple days ago, and I just woke up with this wave of relief, just this wave of relief that I didn't have to do that anymore, because that's just not how I just don't see myself doing it. I feel weird, actually, being 65 years old standing on a stage.
So you're now in retirement in terms of being a stand-up performer.
I'm officially in retirement.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything you get from the government, though.
But I know, because I listen to Humble and Fred, I know that you're a big fan of stand-up, and I'm curious if you caught any of the Emmys the other night.
I didn't catch the Emmys, but I caught some of Nate's stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Nate Bargatze.
So what did you think? I don't know him at all, but I did tune in, and I thought there was an opening skit that was kind of funny, like an SNL-style opening skit, and it was amusing.
Yeah.
And I found that was it for laughs. Like, this is just me. Maybe I don't appreciate a great comic when I see him. But
no,
I didn't think
you're right. I don't
funny.
think he had the best night. I don't think that that's the best forum for him. He had this Boys and Girls Club bit going out, this running gag throughout the thing that didn't really land with everybody. That skit that he did at the beginning was a takeoff on the skit that he did on SNL as George Washington.
Right.
He's very, very good, and I've liked him for a long time. That thing about getting back to me not wanting to do stand-up, it doesn't mean that I'm not, as you mentioned, I still love it. I mean, I watch a lot of it. I watch it like some people listen to, they put on an album for comfort. I've watched almost all of Nate Bargatze's specials easily 3 or 4 times. Whereas a lot of people who like comedy can't really go back and re-listen to it, whereas I can. I find different things, and I enjoy especially him. I enjoy the way he delivers material. His delivery is very, very interesting to me. But I didn't think the Emmys were that great.
No, I didn't think it was particularly funny, and then I got bored and moved on. But when I saw Nate's performance, I was thinking, what would Howard think of this, since you're sort of a student of the game?
Yeah, well, he's very good at it. He's excellent at it. And interestingly enough, he's taken this whole non-controversial, he doesn't swear, and he's made it into a real cottage industry.
It's all family-friendly stuff.
All family-friendly. His whole Nate Land, that's what he calls his company, Nate Land podcast. Nate Land movies are coming out. He wants to develop a theme park in Nashville, where he's from.
Speaking of Nate's, did you catch season 2 of The Rehearsal with Nathan Fielder?
I have not.
Okay, you have to do this.
I've seen a little bit of the first season,
But you got to do 2 because it's all about aviation. Like this is like if I were going to go into an AI model or something, what would be an ideal season of television for Howard Glassman? I think it's season 2 of The Rehearsal. I think you will absolutely love it.
Why? What's it? What's the premise?
So the premise is he has analyzed the logs of all these commercial aircraft crashes, and he has found a commonality, which is the communication between the pilot and the co-pilot. And the whole season, as you know, he very authentically recreates everything and runs through this. It's called The Rehearsal. But I won't blow the mind blow. Like I won't ruin it for you. But I think when you see what happens, there's only 6 episodes, but I think you'll say, Mike, that was fucking incredible. Like what I witnessed in season 2 of The Rehearsal, some of the finest television I've ever seen.
And where's this available?
I think it's like a Crave thing. Like I think it's an HBO show, so it's on Crave. But
it's an interesting concept, and I like the guy. Nathan Fielder's a very interesting character.
So much like flying plane stuff in this, like
all
much
right.
aviation. Because you still have a pilot's license.
I'm gonna go.
Let's watch it together.
Yeah, that's another thing. I still have a pilot's license, but not that I stand up is something that's been in my life for my whole life.
Yeah,
things like flying. That was in my life for, the better part of 10 or 11 years. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like, should I go and, I have no interest in getting recurrent because it would take me about 8 to 10 hours of dual instruction, and it's a lot of money. And at the end of that, I'd be, I'm still with licenses, I'm still licensed to fly an airplane, but nobody would rent me one because I'm not current.
Right.
So at the end of 8 to 10 hours, I could be current again, and people would rent me planes, but it's very expensive, and I don't have the interest in that anymore.
A plane went down in East York yesterday.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's Monarch Park where my kid plays soccer in Monarch Park there.
Did the pilot survive?
Yeah, everybody walked away from this thing, but it's the pictures are wild because it's a crashed little plane and
it tried to land in a soccer field.
I don't know the details, but I saw the pictures, and then my buddy Cam went there and took some video. But yeah, crashed in East York. You don't hear about that every day. This is just yesterday.
No, the flying across the city of Toronto, when you're in the country, one of the things you're taught to do is constantly be aware, and this is when you're flying just by visual reference. One of the things you're taught is to kind of scan the horizon for potential places to land, which when you're flying over farmers' fields is pretty good. But when you're flying, let's say, from Buttonville, where it doesn't exist anymore, but 404 and 401.
Which is where you and I took off when I was in your plane.
Is that where we were? I was
Buttonville.
Okay. I was there. Because I was based out of Buttonville. I flew out of the island for a while, and I started off in Burlington. But if you're flying from Buttonville to Burlington, you're basically flying over the city. And so I used to ask my instructor, where would I put it down? He said, well, first look for a golf course, which makes sense because a small plane like that, you need about 400 to 600 feet, which is sort of a par 5. That would be like 300 yards straight away.
Okay.
Or a soccer field or a football field.
Well, this was a soccer field yesterday. So I'll send you the pic. You can tell me. But so I don't know the details, but everybody walks.
Let's talk about more things I'm not interested in anymore.
But, it sounds like you're still interested in flying. You're just not current, as you say.
Well, it's the same with stand-up. I watch a lot of aviation videos, which is why I'm going to watch this Nathan Fielder thing.
You are, season 2. Okay, so I want to, yesterday, if anything, it's just
How do you
yesterday.
feel things are going so far, by the way?
Good. We're just warming up here.
This
Should
is
I
the
be
warm-up?
recording this?
I'm loving it. I just don't know. Is this the warm-up?
It's the warm-up.
All right.
I was hanging out with a mutual friend of ours yesterday. I was at Palma's Kitchen, and I was having lunch with Anthony Petrucci.
What a sweet man.
So hello from Anthony.
Anthony's the greatest.
He sent over a frozen lasagna. It's in my freezer right now. You can take home with you. And you know how delicious the lasagna is.
It's too much. It's too much, Anthony. It's too much.
And the big announcement is, because this deal was signed and sealed yesterday, but we're going to have TMLX 21.
Amazing.
The last Saturday of November, which I believe is the 29th. So it's going to be noon to 3 on the last Saturday of November at Palma's Kitchen.
Amazing.
Everyone, including you, Howard, everyone's invited.
Can't make it, but it's amazing. That's a bad Saturday for me.
That's a bad day.
Yeah,
You're getting your hair done.
Yeah, I'm getting my No, that sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm glad to see that you and Anthony are still hanging out. I have nothing but kind words for Anthony Petrucci.
Great supporter of this show for many years.
And a great supporter of ours for many years. Absolutely.
We, in the beginning, before there was a Toronto Mic, we used to talk about the Humble and Fred podcasts that would pop up in like December 2006, for example. And we did a bunch of one-offs, I would call them, and until it became a regular thing in October 2011.
What are we still talking about?
We're just saying hello to Anthony Petrucci. And then quickly, I know you're not a consumer of alcohol. I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. But I did get a hop pop for you. I know you have a coffee. Thank you for my coffee. But this hop pop is going home with you because I want you to tell me what you think. There's no alcohol in there.
Well, that's cool.
Alcohol, no alcohol.
Great Lakes.
Yeah, Great Lakes Brewery sent over this delicious hop pop with no alcohol.
So it's 0 alcohol or 0.5? Do you know?
I believe it's got 0 alcohol.
Well, that's good for them.
There. So it's not a beer. It's a hop pop. So it's like a carbonated hoppy beverage. Tell me what you think. And for everybody else, this is timely because it's TMLX 20 is on September 25th at 6 p.m. at the GLB Brew Pub, which is Jarvis.
I'm sorry, that's September 24th. Who? I can't make that.
You can't make that.
That's a tough one for me.
But I just want to make sure the listenership, everybody who's on the list should know it's not the South Etobicoke Brewery. It is the Brew Pub, which is Jarvis and Queens Quay.
Okay.
So
that's very cool.
What are you learning there?
Well, I'm looking at the hop pop. It says hop-infused sparkling water. Yeah. What an interesting category. 0 alcohol, zero calories, 0 calories, and 0 sugar.
Yeah. So tell me what you think. And if you like it, I'll get you more. All right. I only had one in supply. But,
that's fine.
And tell me what you think. Thank you to Great Lakes for that. And thank you for hosting us at TMLX 20 on September 25th. Where do I want to go next? I want to ask you, if you don't mind, about your relationship with golf. Now, I know that as a guy who works with you, that if I want to get a hold of you in the summer months, in the nice months, forget about it. You're probably hitting a golf ball. Like, how many days a week do you play golf?
Can you turn my mic off for a second?
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Turn it back on. Thank you.
There you go.
Well, I'll tell you what I tell my kids when they call me. My daughter just called me the other day. She said, "Hey, what are you doing today?" I said, "Well, why don't you answer your own question?" Yeah. She said, "Okay, it's 25 degrees. Mm-hmm. There's not a cloud in the sky. Are you having sex?" No, that's not what she said. No, how much? What was the question? How much do I play?
Like I fit 7 days in a week, approximately a typical nice week, like the September week. How many of those days would you be on a golf course? Just curious.
6.
Okay. Why not 7? What's wrong with you? You need a day off?
I think there was something, for some reason I couldn't. We were doing something else that day.
But you love it.
Yeah, it's talk about something that's been in my life since I was a kid. I was having this discussion today with a golf buddy of mine. We were talking about this fitness thing that I'm starting, and I said, he said, what is your goal? Like, are you trying to get stronger? Are you trying to hit the ball further? Etc. And I said, well, all of that. I mean, part of it is there's a toll to be paid for playing that much golf. And at 65, as decent a shape as I'm in, I've hurt myself. I mean, my shoulders, when you have kids, that nursery rhyme, head and shoulders, knees and toes.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, from my top to my bottom, I'm in, a lot of pain. My back hurts. My elbows are bugging me. Shoulders, my hips, obviously. And so I'm embarking on a program to mitigate those issues because I find golf endlessly fascinating. And as I said to my buddy today, I said, part of the allure for people like me and him is that imagine you were given a puzzle at the start of your life and you could get really good at solving that puzzle, but the puzzle's always changing and you never completely solve it. So you'd either quit that, like a normal person would say, well, fuck this.
Yeah, it sounds frustrating.
It sounds frustrating. It's so frustrating. But imagine every once in a while you were given a glimpse of something, like some little insight that helped you solve the puzzle, but just for that day. Wouldn't you want to come back the next day and see if you could See, the thing about, and Fred always jokes with me, he said, I can't believe you could play that much golf, or how could you play golf every day or whatever? Right. I said, because every day is different.
Right.
Every day, and I love to compete, and I play a lot of tournament golf. And in fact, in that last 7 days, I had like 3 or 4 rounds of that were tournaments. So that's the allure of it for me on a I was going to say on a cosmic level, on a sort of at a very base level for me. I've been fascinated by trying to solve the puzzle my whole life. My dad, my brothers, my friends, we're all in this little community of puzzle solvers. And so that's why I played every day.
And as far as obsessions go, I mean, it beats heroin, right? Like, this is a pretty... You're
just
going outside.
Barely. Just barely.
You're walking around. You're hitting... Like, this is a healthy thing. Like, you do
for
seem
those
to have...
of you,
yeah, go ahead.
For those of you that have say, hey, heroin is not fascinating enough.
Right.
Sorry, you were going to say?
Well, I was going to say that you do... I think you have a bit of an obsessive personality. Like, so when you get into something, be it flying or golf or whatnot... Unicycling.
Snowboarding.
Right. Well, I'm going to ask you a minute about wakeboarding. But when you get into something, you get deep into it, and you become Spanish. Like focused on it, and you go deep. Yeah. Now that you're fluent in Spanish.
Not fluent. I can barely. Because I figure I've got limited time left on the planet. Don't know what that is, but I do know that I won't bother with anything unless I'm going to give it a good shot, and that's why. Like, there's certain things that have been introduced to me that I'm like, not really interested. My brother in Mexico has tried to get me to play pickleball every time I'm down there. Tried it once. Went okay. It's cool. Not interested, though. But if I were to get into it, this is a very short story that will give you an example of what I'm like. In terms of, you know what I'm like, in terms of my obsessive behavior. Shortly after I learned how to snowboard, I remember coming back from a weekend of doing it, and my eldest daughter, Charlie, said, Daddy, how do you like it? I said, I freaking love this. I love this. One of my favorite things I've ever done. She goes, let me get this. She goes, let me guess. We're opening a snowboard shop. I said, maybe.
Well, go big or go home, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just
don't
think
do it half-assed.
Well, exactly. Like, I don't want to nibble at the edges of things.
Right. I get it.
But that being said, that's why I don't want to do stand-up anymore, because I don't want to like be a tourist in it,
like a drop in.
Yeah, and I've for a while there in the scene, I was way beyond a drop in. I was doing it all the time. I was hitting mics, as the kids say, and that took over my life for a few years. And golf, though, has been a constant since I was a kid. Like, I got onto it really early. I had a couple of friends of mine that I played hockey with. And why that's important is because in the early 70s, nobody who was a kid played golf. We all thought it was a dumb sport until we tried it. And so I had these couple of guys that I played hockey with at a pretty decent level, and they got into golf around the same time as me. So I had people I could compete with, and we learned it. And it's just one of those things where I caught on pretty early, but you never actually solve the puzzle. So,
on that note, this is a good segue, because a question came in for you on the live stream or live at live.torontomike.com. Hey Ref wants to know, how many holes in one have you had this year?
That's not fair. Hey Ref, I have never had a hole in one. I don't know, man. It's like there was a buddy at my course who's around my age, and for the last 10 years, we've had this thing in common where it's like understood that neither of us, and he's a good golfer too, that neither of us have had a hole in one. And then he got one a couple weeks ago.
Oh my God.
And it was like it was almost like I lost my buddy. I lost my no hole in one buddy. And I said to him after, I was giving him congratulations, a big hug, and I said, so what's it like? He goes, it's pretty good.
Shout out your golf podcast. I don't know if everybody knows you have a golf podcast.
Swing Thoughts, about to record episode 300 in a couple weeks. Yes.
So, if you want more Humble Howard and Humble and Fred, if you're a golf fan, you'd love Swing Thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, so shout out to Swing Thoughts.
10 years. 10 years we've been doing, I guess that's 30 a year.
With Tim O'Connor.
Tim O'Connor, a golf writer and author.
Okay. Cool. Did you know it this week, 20 years ago this week, Fred was fired from his Mix 99.9 job. It was 20 years ago this week.
No, it wasn't. It was August.
Well,
yeah.
Okay. I wrote it because I just saw that I wrote about it 20 years ago this week. So maybe
it happened.
I wrote about it later.
It happened in the middle of the summer.
Oh, maybe we thought he was on vacation.
Yeah, maybe it was announced. Yeah. That I had to go on the air and announce it.
That's when I found out.
That's maybe when you found out.
When you announced it. Yeah. I wasn't in the inside yet. I didn't get any advance.
You were
numbers.
close. You were getting there.
I needed you to be fired from all.
Oh yeah, I got fired a year later.
Yeah, so Fred was paid for to stay home for 3 years or something like that, right?
We had a contract, both of us, similar contract, whereby if they fired us, they had to pay us for every day we were under contract, which was very unusual. Yeah. So when I got fired, I got paid for 27 months. And there was a moment there where I basically, the contract said you couldn't work inside the city of Toronto or surrounding areas. And I got offered, do you know I got offered the job at Y95?
I'm not sure I know that, but please continue.
Yeah.
Is that the area? That counts as...
So what I found out was, I think it was Y95.
Huh.
And
that's where Lumbee was, right?
Yeah, that's where Lumbee was. And I'm trying to remember the program director. Had a funny name. Like Dervis or something. I don't know. And so I said to my lawyer, I said, I want to take the job. Can you find out from Standard at the time? They became Estrell. And what he found out was, yes, it was outside of the physical restrictions for my contract. But because that radio station showed up in the Toronto ratings, they wouldn't let me take the job. Which was kind of a drag because at the time I was only 43, 44, 45. And I thought, I need a gig because when this money stops, I'm not going to be able to, I can't live on it for the rest of my life. And I thought that the morning show in Hamilton would be a good transitional gig for me. I could have done that for the next 10 years and then retired.
It's interesting, though, that the company Standard that fires you from Mix 99.9 a year after Fred got it is also the company that hires you, right, for your next radio gig? Because they owned,
before we get to that, though, it could have been Y108.
Okay.
It was either Y108 or Y95.
Well, Y108, that's chorus, right?
Yeah. Whatever it was the rock station. So maybe that was Y95. Yeah, I had 27 months, and about 2 months before that was over, it was the strangest thing. The company, Standard Broadcasting, had a conference for all their program directors. I don't know, maybe that's 10 or 15-ish guys, men and women.
Human beings.
Human beings.
Because now they're not necessarily human beings.
We don't know. They were human beings, for the most part, in that room. And I happened to be out for lunch with my former boss, a guy named Pat Holliday. And he said, yeah, all the PDs are coming into town next week. And he said, I have an idea. Would you like to come and talk to them? I said, sure. Like about what? He said, well, you've been, a morning guy a long time. Maybe we could have a little session where you talk to the guys about what you feel about, mornings currently, blah, blah, blah. And I said, sure. So I got up in front of all these guys and we did a little Q&A. I did a little assessment of what I thought the state of morning radio was. And it went really well. And there was a guy in that room named Brian DePoe. Great guy. One of my favorite guys that I ever worked for, actually. And Brian came up to me. And I'd known Brian because I'd been in the building. And at the time when I was at the Mix, Brian was the program director of Easy Rock. And, I would sort of kibitz with him in the halls. And, I really liked him as a guy and blah, blah, blah. So after I give this little talk to all these PDs from Toronto and across the country, Brian says to me, how is it that you're not still with our company? I said, well, Brian, I got fired and all. And he said, yeah, I have something about that. That's kind of a drag. We got to get you back in. And 2 months later, they hired me as the morning guy at Easy Rock.
Wow. I got a long email from Brian DePoe right after my Mike Cooper episode. So Brian just wanted to fact check some things that
I bet. I bet.
We had long exchange. So he's a PD at Easy Rock, and he gets you back on the air at Easy Rock. And of course, all radio aficionados know Easy Rock becomes Boom, which I saw just yesterday. I saw on LinkedIn, I think the program director or somebody at Boom was saying, it's the most listened to commercial English station in the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. As soon as they got rid of me, things just took off. Yeah. Yeah, it's very successful. I don't know what that means in terms of numbers anymore, but they've been the number one station in Toronto for a good decade. And at the time, I was the morning guy with Colleen Rusho.
Of course.
When I got hired at Easy Rock, as most people would remember, maybe they don't. Shouldn't say most people remember. I just assume somebody listening to this has heard that I was. Yeah, you would remember. It was me and Kim Stockwood from the Canadian band Shay, and Kim was one of my greatest radio experiences, and only lasted a year. Was working with that woman because she was so good, creative, funny, kind, smart, beautiful, great spirit. Just a wonderful person to hang out with every day. Laughed my head off with her. But she had so little radio experience. It wasn't really fair throwing her in there. It was Colleen and I and Kim. And in fact, how it worked out, Kim and I got hired. Colleen had been fired with Stu Jeffries. They rehired Colleen to bring her in to work with the two of us. Then they think, hey, if you're going to have people in a studio talking for like 3 minutes at a time, why don't you add a fourth person? So they bring in Rick Hodge.
Right.
So it was just chaos. So after about a year of that, they fire Rick, or they send him to somewhere else, and the Kim gets fired, and it's just Colleen and I. And Colleen, another great broadcaster. So funny. I laughed my head off the air. But the show we were doing on the air wasn't very good. And they brought in some consultants and a new program director. And I could just tell, like, it wasn't going great, unfortunately. They even took a meeting with Fred and I.
Well, I was going to ask if they ever considered bringing Fred in.
Absolutely. When things were really starting to flounder, in January, February of 2011, I had been there now for a couple years, and I was making okay money. I wasn't making the money that Fred and I were making, but I was making decent money, and I wanted to keep the job. And I could tell I was doing everything they told me to do, but it just wasn't working. And at one point that spring, before they fired me, they fired me in May. So like February, March, I said, hey, what about Fred? That would be great. And it would have been. Like Humble and Fred on that radio station. Yeah. Well, given our luck, it wouldn't be the most successful. But I thought that would be a great morning show with Colleen. And took a meeting with Fred, and the guy came back with some research about how we really weren't top of mind in the market anymore or something. I said, guys, we haven't been on the air for 5 years. Yeah, of course we're not top of mind. Of course we don't resonate, but that would have been a great place for us.
Yeah, because the music on Boom is the greatest hits type stuff, right? 70s, 80s, 90s. I feel like that is people who remember Humble and Fred on
well, especially the 90s, and especially they play a good amount, or they did. I haven't heard it for a while, but they did play a good amount of kind of cool pop alternative,
like
REM.
Alanis Morissette,
REM, Losing My Religion, that type of thing. We would have been perfect for it. That being said, you got to give props to Stu Jeffries. He's done a great job. He's great at that job. He's excellent. He's very, very good at broadcasting.
And he's the only one in that room.
He's the only one in that room. And from what people tell me, it's very engaging. It's very personal. And all the success, he deserves everything he's gotten.
Yes, seems like a sweetheart. Do you remember the day before Easy Rock became Boom? And you talked about that four-person room with Rick Hodge and Kim Stockwood, you and Colleen Rusholm. Do you remember the day I live blogged it? Do you have any memory of this? So you invited me.
Yeah, you were in the studio with me.
I sat in for the whole show.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a Starbucks that day too, and I literally was live blogging.
Yeah,
And it was
I do remember
I think
that.
that's the first time in my life I ever was in an actual radio studio. There you go.
I do recall that. I can actually see where you were sitting between. You were between me and Kim, because Kim was over here to my right, and then Colleen was across from me. Andy Wilson, who's the morning guy at Zoom now. Is it Zoom?
Zoomer.
At Zoom. At Zoom Radio, he's the morning guy. He was over here operating the show. I got to tell you, the laughs that we had off the air in that room. I used to say that to my boss. I said, man, if we could just get that vibe on the air, this thing would be really good. And when when Rick and Kim got moved out, and Colleen and I were doing it, same thing, the three of us, Andy and I and Colleen, would piss ourselves laughing. But then we would go on the air and it was just it just didn't work.
Well, I've had this chat. I saw Colleen Rushholm at the Neil Young concert, and we talk about this. She simply didn't feel like she could be herself when the red light was on. Like, so she did that version you're seeing of Colleen, that hilarious version when the red light's not on and you're on commercial break or whatever, playing a song. She felt like she couldn't be that person on the air. Like she had to rein it in. I don't know if that's because of she's a woman or what. I don't know.
Well, now that you've said that, I wasn't going to comment on that. But Colleen Rushholm might be one of the funniest people. And I hope she gets to hear this because she knows how much I love her as a person. I talk to her quite a bit, and she knows how highly I think of her. So I can say that one of the funniest people I've ever worked with off the air was Colleen. And to hear her say that is very interesting to me because I would often say that, not to too many people, but I'd say, man, if we could just get off-air Colleen on the air, this would be a great show because something happens to her. And by the way, she's not alone.
Right.
I've had a lot of experience with big-time broadcasters that have come on our podcast. Well, you know what it's like. That just can't carry a conversation. Because that's not how they're built as far as broadcasters go. But I think Colleen, as good, and she was good, man. Like she says it, she could never be herself on the air, but lots of versions of herself on the air were so good, but just never quite as good as what she was like, just shooting the shit. And I said that to her. I said, man, we need to find a way to get that Colleen, who just cracks me up. I don't know. I couldn't explain it then, and I can't explain it now.
Well, let me ask you this. So Colleen and I are the same age, okay? How is it that Colleen has been, I have to word this properly, but has been retired from radio in that she's not on radio anymore? Like, is there no room in 2025 radio for a Colleen Rushholm?
I would ask her that. I don't know. I think she likes where she's living up, wherever that is. Yeah. Georgian Bay area, near, I know it's one of those places. I can't remember. Yep.
No, she's loving her life, absolutely. Yeah. But she was retired, and now, of course, she's embraced it.
She was in it a long time, man. Like, how old are you?
51.
I mean, Colleen would have been in broadcasting 30-ish years. And is there a place for Colleen? Absolutely. But, less and less so. And not, unlike a lot of ex-broadcasters, not interested in doing a podcast.
Right. No, she's definitely happy. I mean, she was very happy when I saw her at the Neil Young concert. But okay.
Did you have lawn seats?
I got, Neil, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to...
who are you going to see?
I'm going to go see the Doobie Brothers in a couple of days.
And that's with Michael McDonald, right?
Yeah, he's back. So I'm going to sit on the lawn. I think those are great seats, actually.
Well, I never sit on the lawn, but I always buy a lawn.
Yeah.
So I was at the Who. I had a lawn. Oh, I was going to ask you. So we talked about golf, and I saw Tom Cochran.
Yeah, I did run into him.
Did you golf with him?
Well, so he opened for the Who. What day of the week was that? Like a Friday, Saturday?
Was it Tuesday and a Thursday.
Okay,
I was at the Tuesday show.
Tuesday, Wednesday, he opens for the Who. And then Monday, I see him at this golf tournament, and he gives me a big hug. And, the bro hug. But I sort of whisper in his ear. I'm like, what are you doing here? I thought you joined the Who. Actually, I'm going to be at a tournament next week in Montreal for 3 days with Tom.
Amazing.
He's a very good golfer. He's not as good as he used to be. He doesn't play as much.
Well, my first question when he came on Toronto Mike was I asked him, what kind of golfer you are, and he said you're. Well, we already know you're an excellent golfer. You win some of these tournaments that you enter. That's what I hear.
Tom's very good at golf. Tom also was an inspiration for me when it came to getting my pilot's license because he had his before me.
And did he crash?
He crashed twice. He had a float plane that crashed twice.
Okay. Does he still fly?
I don't think so. You know who flies a lot now, though?
I do know.
Is Eddie.
Ed Robertson.
Ed Robertson. I had my license before him, but he's a very, very accomplished pilot now. Flies from show to show.
No, I hear. He's hopefully he wasn't flying that plane I saw at Monarch Park yesterday.
No.
I don't kid. I have more questions for you, but I just want to shout out a couple of partners that help keep this thing going here. So some love to the Blue Sky Agency. Blue Sky Agency is Doug Mills, and he has forged partnerships with established office furniture brands like Silent and Green Furniture Concept and Rouliard. And if anyone listening is looking for dynamic and creative work environments, my wife, Monica, works for a bank, and they've told her you got to be in the office 4 days a week now, Howard. This is the new, effective this week, I believe.
That's bullshit.
I know it is bullshit. So 4 days a week, but a lot of people being called back to the office, which means a lot of reconfiguration of work environments in the offices. If you're looking for dynamic and creative work environments, write Doug at blueskyagency.ca. Let him know you're an FOTM and talk to Doug about how he can help you. I know that you know Brad Jones from Ridley Funeral Home. Brad has been on the Humble and Fred show. Great man. And you have a measuring tape here, courtesy of Brad Jones at Ridley Funeral Home. You can measure anything you like, Howard.
Nice.
Brad's got a great podcast called Life's Undertaking. I urge people to subscribe and listen to Life's Undertaking. We drop a new episode every 2 weeks. There's an episode coming up with some people who from the Waterfront BIA. We're going to talk about some of the events happening at the Waterfront BIA. So look forward to that. And last but not least, before I get back to my Humble Howard questions, I want to tell people about recyclemyelectronics.ca, because Howard, if you have a drawer full of old cables, old electronics, old devices, don't throw that in the garbage, Howard, because those chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, stick in your postal code, and find out where you can drop it off to be properly recycled. You got it? He's got it. Any breaking news? Oh, that's right. I was listening to your show this morning, and there was breaking news.
Yeah, Robert Redford died.
So I have 9 seconds of this.
What do we got here? Red the Salvation Army Band?
Bob Fisher?
Who wants to know?
I'm Roy Hobbs, your new right fielder.
My what?
Yeah,
I loved
great movie.
The Natural.
Did you hear me mention it?
Yeah.
Yeah, great movie. There's a movie I've seen easily a dozen times in my life. I could watch it. It's one, when movies used to come on TV, before you could have a movie right, like at the blink of an eye.
Sure.
That was one of those movies that at any point in that movie, if I started watching it, I would watch it till the end. It's a great movie.
Yeah, absolutely love it. I mean, he's done so much, so many great films, but the first movie that popped in my head when I heard Robert Redford had died, I was on a bike ride. I guess I heard Dan Duran say it, and the first movie I thought of was The Natural, and I felt, there goes Roy Hobbs.
Yeah, the first one I thought of, because I said it out loud, was Butch Cassidy, but then quickly pivoted to that one, which I guess of all the Redford movies, that would be the one I've seen the most. They outlawed Josie Wales. There's wasn't he in the one
Sting?
about I mentioned The Sting.
Yeah.
The one with Dustin Hoffman.
Sneakers. Do you mean Sneak?
Nobody. All the President's Men.
Yes, All the President's Men. Yes.
Like when the show was over today, I wrote down Robert Redford movies because I wanted to bring up all those other ones that we didn't have off the top of our head, like All the President's Men.
Yeah, great movie.
Great movie.
Great movie.
Yeah, very good. And I'm 89 years old. That's a long run, dude.
Yeah, you'll take that, right?
I'm not getting to 89. Not with what I've done to my body.
Well, you look like pretty good for a 65-year-old.
Thank you, Mike.
You've got at least 20 more in you.
Oh, I hope so.
Who's the woman singing this?
That Humble and Freddie, they'll stand back to back. They'll bend over bums, yeah.
want to say a friend of Jamie Watson's, but it could also be a friend of Dan Duran's.
Oh.
I never met her.
Okay.
She recorded that offsite for us. But I want to say Jamie, because it's a Jamie production, I can tell.
So it's not Amin Bhatia?
Amin Bhatia?
Amin Bhatia, yes, like
it could
thin
be
tortilla.
But Amin and Jamie
they work
were
together.
kind of in our lives around the same time.
Okay.
So that could have been Amin Bhatia, but also could have been a Dan Duran hookup because Dan and Amin were friends.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One more. I think it's the same woman. Tell me if this is the same woman.
Nothing compares.
Yes.
Nothing compares to Humble and Fred.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I like these things. You know, I could just have you come over, hang out for an hour, and we just play these. Like,
I wish we would do that.
Early in,
way more interesting than what I have to say.
early in our relationship, Howard, you gave me like a bunch of CDs you had, like of these singers and ideas, and I ripped them to MP3. I still have them.
Go ahead and play some more.
Okay, I'll play a couple more. How about
let's
do this one?
Because by this point, no one else is listening to this.
No, that's not true.
The news today,
This is one of my favorites.
Humble and Fred are here to stay, or just kill me now.
There you go, some Creed.
Yeah.
And here's a band.
That's Jamie for sure. That was Jamie a second ago too.
Fred, you are.
This is so good.
Well, how about this one?
Also so good.
Won't disappear this morning, not till the show is over.
How good is that?
No, it's very well produced. Absolutely.
Like he's so good at the voice, but also the production.
Well, here he is doing a pretty damn good Billy Corgan.
Humble and Fred are vampires.
So imagine going from that into the actual song.
Yeah.
Like when we would play that Greasy Jungle or whatever, or the Bill Barucco, like, and then go right into the song. It was cool. Absolutely. There was a lot of stuff we did on our show that didn't have really Humble and Fred involved in it, that were Humble and Fred production. Mm-hmm. That tone, those are the things I think that in a subtle way gave our show the tone it had. Yeah, Fred and I and our sense of humor and our banter and the camaraderie. But the tone of the show came from a lot of that outside stuff.
Here's one of my favorite bands. Yeah,
Jamie Watson's a pretty talented guy.
Don't give up. You still have Humble and Fred.
Now you're going to make me cry.
That's the goal here. Okay, I want to ask you about somebody else who passed away. So we just learned about Robert Redford today, but we lost Ken Dryden. Ken Dryden about a week ago, I suppose, maybe a bit more than that. But Ken Dryden, I was hoping you would share the story of your professional tie to Ken Dryden when you were on Mojo Radio.
Well, why don't you just take the thing we explained the other day on the show?
Because this is Toronto Mic'd. You got to
Toronto Mic'd.
You take the thing we said on the show.
Take the thing.
You're here right now.
I know, but it would be better if you took the thing and edited it.
No, it's not better. It's better that you tell us.
Well, I don't want to make this a long story. I'll make it as short as I can. We were on Mojo Talk Radio for guys, and it was us and Derringer and Ripken and Stafford and a really good lineup of May Potts was also there. And the whole tone of the radio station was kind of like a rock and roll talk station. Would have been huge. And one of the things that we did was we were the broadcast home of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And following Leaf broadcasts, we had Leaf Talk with Andrew, what's his name?
Andy Frost?
Oh, yeah.
Not
Andrew,
like Jeff. Was Jeff Merrick on the show?
Nope.
Or no, he was on your show.
No, and Jeff hadn't even. Okay. Jeff was doing news for us.
Okay, gotcha.
When I first met Jeff, he was doing live audio wrestling on Sunday nights, and I thought he was excellent. Wasn't even the content. I just thought he was a great broadcaster. But that's another story where I literally begged on hands and knees. I begged our program director to please give us Jeff Merrick because he could do the job. But I digress. So following
you were
the
right.
Leafs, and he was great. He was great from the first. He was great long before I met him. And so after the Leaf game, we have Leaf Talk, and then at midnight was a sex show. I think she was called. Do you remember the name of the show? Dr. Sex or
something like that.
It wasn't Sex with Sue.
It wasn't one of the famous ones.
No, but it was a woman named Rebecca, and she was very sexy. And so think about it. You got the Leaf game, and then guys are going home listening to Frost, calling in about their reaction to the game. And then when that's done, you got a girl with a beautiful voice being very explicit.
Right.
And when Mr. Dryden heard that, he blew some kind of internal gasket and put an end to it. And that kind of was a bit of a watershed moment for the radio station, because it was like, oh, if you're going to be the home of the Leafs, we can't allow it to be too risque. I'm like, are you kidding me? You don't think the guys listening to the Leaf game would also like to go to bed with a little bit of a semi?
Yeah, but we're missing a key part of this puzzle, right? Because Ken was hired to manage the Maple Leaf Gardens pedophile sex scandal. So I think that's the reason that they didn't want to be associated with anything sexual.
Good point.
Yeah, I do think, because I did hear you guys talk about it, but you didn't mention that detail. But I just had Steve Paikin, my MP, James Maloney, who's also your MP, by the way, and Bruce Dobigan for a Ken Dryden episode. And we talked about the fact that they needed somebody who's the purest guy around, the purest guy. It was Ken Dryden. So he was president during this period so that they could handle this awful sex scandal at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Well, that makes sense. I did not, it's funny. I knew at some point, I think I had a vague awareness that he was hired around that time.
Yeah.
But until this very moment in time, I was this moment old. It makes sense. Well, whatever the impetus was,
right,
the net of it was, for us, it changed the tone of the radio station.
Yeah.
I don't know how Mr. Dryden wasn't aware that the tone of the radio station was going to be a bit risque, because it was called, Talk Radio for Guys. There are no chicks in jail. There was, it's beer, sex, hockey, it's like our whole...
You had calendars?
Calendars.
But you weren't allowed to hang them up in the
that wasn't
studio.
a Dryden thing.
No.
That was an HR thing. Yeah, we had a Mojo calendar with all these girls in it, and Fred and I. And we were not allowed to hang the calendar up in the office. Which, again, it was the early days of, the wokeism and whatever, which is fine. But, Ken was definitely responsible for a big change, a big turn in the tone of the radio station.
So there's your personal...
Who's mask? Speaking of goalies, whose mask is that? Let me guess.
I don't actually... It actually doesn't belong to any play or anything.
But it's very reminiscent.
Cheevers?
No. Cheevers would have stitches all over it.
Right.
It's very Tony Esposito-esque. Speaking of which, did you see that? I had written this down. That Eddie Jackman died.
Yes, I did see that.
I gotta write that down because I was going to talk
about
with
that
Fred
tomorrow.
Yeah, I said, because I wrote it down somewhere. Because when I was a kid, even though I played out, anytime I played road hockey, I wanted to play net.
Right.
Because you got, road hockey, you've got a baseball glove and maybe some kid's blocker. But I loved goalies. Yeah. And Eddie Jackman, yeah.
I remember being Mike Palmatier playing ball hockey.
I was always Cheevers.
Always Cheevers. Hey, a little sad note, though, I want to share with the listeners because we mentioned Mojo Radio. So just some sad news I'll pass on now, Howard, if it's okay, is that Mike Stafford, who's been on the show a few times since he was let go from his job at AM 640, he's been on periodically, and he talked about his wife, Jody, battling cancer. So the sad news for the listenership is that Jody passed away yesterday.
That's very sad. Yeah. I don't know. Didn't know her. I knew that she came into Mike's life later in life.
So, and I think the way it tied into Humble and Fred is Fred was originally going to be the best man for the wedding. And then he got fired as best man, which has been...
Well, I guess he won't be invited to the funeral then.
Well, so Mike Stafford, we're thinking of you, and we're sorry about this loss. She was only like 55 years old or something like that. So
another death.
Way too young.
Bev Thompson, speaking of somebody that passed away way too young.
Yeah, 61.
Yeah, I had done some work with Bev over the years. I hosted, I think I said this on the show, I hosted New Year's, and I was this guy for a while. I guess I was like Ryan Seacrest in training. but I was like the go-to. Let's get Howard to do silly stuff. So I hosted the New Year's Eve in Niagara Falls broadcast with Beverly, Ken Thompson, Ken Shaw, and myself. But I was in that building working on the Dini Petty Show for a couple of years.
Of course. And you got Dan on that show. Am I right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I got Dan on it. That was quite the story.
Do you want to tell it or?
I don't know. How much time do we have, Mike?
Well, then, it's up to, I always feel with you like you run out of gas or patience or something. I'm just enjoying the chat. I'm just enjoying the chat.
Well, so I'd been on the Dini Petty Show for a couple of years. They had a rotating group of experts, and I say that with quotation marks, but they liked me.
Sure. I'd
been a guest on her show, very similar to like I made her laugh, and they created a spot for me, and I was I was in my early 30s and just newly married, and I came up with this character called the professional husband.
Right.
And every week I would come on because they had 5 shows a week, and they had 5 different experts. The other 4 people were actual experts. They had a cooking expert, or like real people. And I just came up with this cock and mamie bullshit expertise. I was going to be the professional husband and give out advice, which was I thought it was a good bit, but
sure.
I ended up having to do like 50 of them. So I had a producer, I had a segment producer. And every week we'd say, okay, and what are you going to do this week? And I would come up with some, thing. We'd go and shoot it. And then I would come on the show, present it to her, kind of like a character on the show. And I had done this for a couple years. I'd become a staple on, again, I'd done some CTV stuff. And what was starting to happen is other programs, I did a thing for the news, like I was just becoming like this go-to guy
sure.
that you could send out into the field. And I'd come back with some funny little Letterman-esque, because I was a big Letterman fan.
Sure.
So I would do that sort of Letterman, sort of talking to people on the street or something, and then I would present it. And then I find out from my producer, this is like season 3. I've been on there for a couple years. And then I find out that they're looking for a permanent co-host. I'm like, bring it on.
Yeah.
Like, she likes me. We get along.
Right.
The audience knows me. I'm pretty good at this gig now. And then they say, well, we're auditioning. I'm like, all right. And I come on and I do a audition with her. Let me just pause for a second. In fact, Mike, there was a show, and I'm not sure if, I got to remember this because it's going to sound like I'm making it up, but there was a show prior to or around the time, this was just around the time this was happening, where Dini couldn't make it one day or had to miss a portion of the show that I hosted. Like, I'm literally on the couch, throwing to commercials, et cetera, hosting the show. The reason I mention it is because that wasn't enough to get me the gig. So I auditioned for the gig as her permanent co-host, and in comes this fellow, my best friend, godfather of my children, one of my child's, guy I've known my whole life, never been on the show, wanders in with his giant TV face and gets the gig.
It's because he's handsome.
Really? Is that why? Of course it is. So, but it was a little bit of I can remember it being a little bit of a bone of contention.
Sure.
Because I had worked so hard to get sort of in on this thing. Plus, my segments were labor intensive. I had to go and shoot something, and then I'd show up on a taping day. Like, it was a lot of work. I loved it, though. And it helped me get another gig. So in the end, it was worth it for me.
But did Dan, did he say, hey, here's the deal, nothing personal here, but they want to hire me? Like, did he clear it with you, or did you find out when they just said, hey, we hired your best buddy?
I don't recall. By the way, that doesn't sound like something he would do. So after my first kid was born, so when Dan became the season that Dan became her permanent co-host, and by the way, that gig lasted for years. Just the money alone, it would have made me. Like, it's big time, ACTRA, 5-day a week TV money.
Right.
But the year that Dan got the job, they sort of stopped this 5-person expert thing and just had me on once in a while. And And one of the times they had me on, I brought on my new baby, Dan's godchild.
Right.
And so they were, and again, part of it was because I'd been on the show for several years, including shooting my ex-wife Randy pregnant. We did this bit at you'll love this. We did a bit at a pumpkin patch where we had the camera, pan across these pumpkins, and then we had made Randy's belly up to look like a jack-o'-lantern, stuff like that.
Sure.
So I come on the show with my new child. And I'm sitting there next to Dini, and she says, Dan, have you held your goddaughter? And so we give the baby to Dan, and he almost fucking fumbles it. It was so perfect. It was so Dan Duran. It's like, give me that kid back.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's the story of that. But it turned out okay for me because there was a producer that had seen me on there, a guy named John Brunton. And when Steve Kersner, who had created this character, Ed the Sock, up till this point, this is around 1994, 95, where I was being sort of phased out of the Dini Petty Show because, they had the great Dan Duran. John saw me, and at the same time, Steven Kersner, Ed, had got a deal at City to bring this cable show that he'd been doing to actual broadcast television. And John calls me up and suggests that I come audition for the show. And that's how I got that gig. So, and being her co-host, Dan was perfect for it. Dan's the perfect guy for that job. I think, to be honest with you, it wasn't just because Dan was way better looking than me, which he is. The reason I didn't get the gig in the end is because I competed too much with her. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was too much of a big personality.
She needed, I totally.
She wanted a co-host. She didn't
Right.
She wanted a sidekick, not a co-host.
Right.
She wanted somebody like Dan who's perfect for that gig. Like, he's amazing at it. And he was amazing at it, and remains so to this day. But I was more of a driver. I would have wanted to interject myself too much into it. So I think that for that reason, they went with Dan. For among the many reasons, but that was definitely one of them.
And to this day, Dan is on the Humble and Fred podcast. So I want to make sure we're clear that people can subscribe to Humble and Fred.
Yes.
You record
Please.
Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So what we're talking on a Tuesday, so you got a live show. And because you're live on Facebook, it's important the listenership know that it's 7:30 in the morning. If you go to the Humble and Fred Facebook page, you can watch the guys record live. So
and see how much better looking Dan is to this very day.
I asked Dini came on Toronto Mike, then I asked her about this we're talking about now. And she said something to the effect of, he got the gig because he was hot. Like she owns it. Like,
oh, no, absolutely. But I could tell you, I know Dini. I spent a lot of time with Dini, and I really, really liked her. Really like her. But I also know her personality. And I know that I gave her a bit more cheek, back and forth.
Right.
And I can imagine, listen, if I were hosting that show and they said, hey, do you want Howard, the guy that, takes up a lot of air and
funny guy?
The funny guy isn't afraid to mix it up with you? Or do you want the sweet, good-natured, good-looking, super TV guy who looks great in a suit? That would be a no-brainer. But it was a gig I wanted for sure.
Sure. It's funny then you, because I watched that at the Sock. I watched him on Cable 10, a couple of different hosts, and then came to City TV. And I definitely remember Howard Glassman hosting the Ed the Sock show on City TV. So
it was a great experience for me. I often talk about it. I mean, I've mentioned it over the years I sometimes will throw it away as a negative experience. And I'll say this because I've made my peace with Steve Kersner over the years. He's taking a lot of shots at me, but we've come to a nice place now, and I really do respect what he did. I respect that he's been at it this long, and he's still trying to grind it out. But for me, as a guy that was a student of the television game, and I had done a lot of TV. Most people don't know, but I had a TV show on CBC prior to Dini. I had hosted one-off specials on television prior to Dini. But Dini gave me a real kind of refresher onto that type of broadcast television. So when it came time to do Ed's night party, it was a dream come true for me because it was a 4-camera shoot, at least. It was an audience. I had to do a monologue, and I got a real crash course in being the host of a show like that. Going from, the audience to the guest to Ed, handling that, and then wrapping it up, throwing to commercials, knowing I loved it.
Well, you're a big Letterman fan.
I was yeah, exactly. So as a Letterman fan, I loved everything about it except the character of Ed the Sock. And because it just wasn't my sense of humor.
Right.
And so I had this one hand, like 75% of it was my dream gig, except the guy who was the star of the show, I just found annoying. But that's fine because the audience loved him. The weird thing was I looked like the host, but I was the sidekick. He looked like the sidekick, but it was his show.
Right.
And that's why again, after 2 years of doing it, he fired me. At the time, it pissed me off, but I know now. I look back, I got fired for the same reasons I didn't get hired by Dini. I took up too much space. I looked like the host, and that wasn't what he wanted.
Right.
I took over the tone of the show. That's not what he wanted. I shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? Like I made that show as much of my own that I could, and if I hadn't been as ambitious, I probably would have. I would have still had the gig because I wouldn't have tried to insert myself so much into it. Yeah. But I will tell you, he's another guy that I have had such like off-camera laughs with. Like a couple of times we did some remote shoots.
Oh, Kersner,
man.
Yeah.
So we did some remote shoots. They're long days, 8 or 9 or 10 hours, and you get a little punchy. And I remember Steve making me fucking laugh so hard. So I do have some fond memories. It wasn't my, again, I would have been better off if I'd have been a little less assertive in the role, but I did get to meet some cool people, and I got a lot of. It was a great broadcast experience.
He's doing overnights live on The Rock in Oshawa. Steve Kersner as Ed the Sock.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's got a live over. I don't know if there's any other live overnight. Maybe 680 News. I don't know, but I think that might be the only live overnight show in the GTA.
Toronto, Mike, let me ask you about a show that I hosted briefly.
Switchback.
No, that was the CBC show I had. There was a show, and I've had this conversation recently, and it's making me think of, because we're having this television conversation. It was hosted by Murray McLaughlin. Do you remember this show? It was on Global Television, and he had gotten this show. I can't remember the name of it, but it was going to be Canada's version of Politically Incorrect.
I have no memory of this.
And I was a guest on it a couple times on the panel. Mm-hmm. And we should look it up because I can't remember the name of it, but they were going to cancel it. In fact, they were going to cancel the show. I found out after the fact. They were going to cancel the show. And then I came on as one of the panelists, and they thought they had about, what's the name of it?
Well, I see a show. I think this is a different show. This is called Floating Over Canada, but this is a different show.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was.
All right, I'll find it.
Yeah, find it. So when I did the second appearance, they had about 8 weeks left of the season, and they were going to cancel it. And then I did this appearance, and the producer came up to me after and said, "We're thinking of having you take over as the host. Murray isn't working out. This isn't his cup of tea. He doesn't like doing it. Whatever it was a mutual thing. What would you think of that?" And I got to tell you, Mike, I was made for it.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm Bill Maher or whatever, but it was a monologue, an audience, 3 or 4 panelists. It was politically centered, but not completely, not exclusively. And I'm going to tell you, when it was over, I was so sad because it was the show I would have loved to have done. Because by that point now, I had done a 4-camera shoot. I'd done a couple years of Dini. I had a couple years with Ed the Sock. I felt like, I had enough experience to handle it. And unfortunately, after I did 8 episodes, they never renewed it. But it was a show that, I'm not sure if you didn't know about it or you didn't know that I did it, then nobody knew about it.
Yeah, I can't even find any. I know I know it exists. It's not called Listen Up, right? That's a different. He had a few different shows they tried him out on, but I have no memory of this television show you're describing.
I would just go Murray McLaughlin Global Television.
Well, I did Murray McLaughlin Global Television,
and nothing comes up. Well, it's all right.
It's yeah. I mean,
you can insert.
And I went to the wiki page. There's nothing.
You can insert this as a postscript. Well, I'm sure it won't be on his wiki page. No, like it was not I don't think it was a great experience for him.
Well, he doesn't write his own wiki page, right? Like he did it. He would typically it would. So interesting. Okay, so that's the first. He what's his song? Rock This Town. That was the first song ever played on Q107 when they launched. Q107.
Murray McLaughlin's got a song called "Rock This Town."
Yeah.
No, I have no idea. I thought
maybe not Rock This Town. Maybe it's called
Murray's is
Rock Town.
Straw hats and old dirty hankies.
Sure, but he had a song.
I almost said straw hats and old dirty cankles.
Hard Rock Town is
Hard Rock Town
that he first song ever played on Q107.
If you don't know about the show, maybe I'm making it up.
I do have a question though. Go ahead. Sorry.
All I know is it was one of those moments in my career, if we can call it that I thought, if there was ever a thing, I was the right age.
Jeez.
I was the right age. It was the right. I had the right experience. Probably late '90s, might be early 2000s. Huh. It's just one of those things where every once in a while I'll think about it and go, oh, yeah, that thing. Wow. That show.
Okay, so the show you're currently heard on, of course, beyond Swing Thoughts, is Humble and Fred. And if, people can subscribe right now.
Yeah. Are we wrapping up? Is that what it feels like? Is this what wrapping up feels like?
I have a question. No, I got a couple of quick hits, but I don't want to take too much time. But
I got a massage after this.
Well, maybe I'll join you. Okay. YYZ Gordon.
Hey, Lily, do you mind if that's my massage lady's name. Can I bring a friend? Can Mike be in the room?
2 for 1. I just want to live blog
It's not that kind of massage boon.
There's no neon light outside. Okay. YYZ Gord writes in.
I like YYZ.
This is an interesting question, actually. He says, I'm not sure I have a direct question and not sure how to frame this, but there's been recent discussions about the current status of Phil through Bill Brio. Clearly, Humble and Fred are still interested in Phil. Curious if he has done anything to reach out or try to repair the relationship or any regrets there. This is YYZ Gord.
I have, and I do regret it. We supported Phil, like his, Caucasian parents, his Caucasian gay parents, his same-sex parents, Humble and Fred. Supported the guy for 10 years. I like he was in my house every day, and hung out with him and tried to give him all kinds of other opportunities. And whenever we would bring in people to rent our studio, we'd give Phil the gig so he'd have extra money.
Sure.
We paid him, even though he was kind of like a part-time hourly employee. We paid him like he was a full-time staff member. Whether we worked 4 days or 5 or we took time off, we kept paying him. But something happened. Fred and I kidded around with Phil a lot. You could hear it on the show. And we had to get rid of him. We kept him on long after it wasn't physically or fiscally responsible. And when physically he was in our studio, there was lots for him to do. But when the pandemic hit, he was now producing our show every day on Zoom, basically just sitting there in the corner of the screen, not doing anything. So we had to fire him. And I don't think he holds me more or less responsible for that. I don't know. But there was some acrimony around him being fired. Not from us, but him and some other listeners were kind of going back and forth about some stuff. And then after the fact, because I tried to reach out to him a couple times, and I have found out after the fact that he believes I said something untoward to one of his sister daughters one time when they were sitting around the studio with me. And honestly, Mike, I don't know what he's talking about. I always treated his sisters like they were, kids. I kidded around with them. We would joke with them, and they were always welcome, and we were always, I thought, very kind toward them. I thought I was. So I have no explanation other than he thinks something I said to them, he cannot forgive me for, is what he said, which is, pretty crazy because some of the shit we said to him, about him, with his wife and all kinds of stuff. So I regret that because it would be nice to see.
Well, I tried to book him
how
on
he's
Humble
doing.
And Fred to
he won't do it.
And he won't do it, right? Okay.
So it is regretful only in that I had such affection for the guy.
Right.
And we all were like this little unit for so long, a long time.
I remember when he showed up at the
Phil,
30th
the Friday
Street,
intern.
the 30th Street studios there.
He was going to school. He would come in once a week. We called him Phil, the Friday intern.
Very early in the run, he showed up.
I remember the day he was interviewing with us. I was in, we had a little tiny room. It was barely a studio, much smaller than
Oh,
this.
at the fish tank.
30th, at the fish, with the fish tank.
I remember it well.
So I was in there doing something, and Fred walked out the door to meet this kid that was going to intern or interview to be our intern. And Fred almost came back in running. He goes, "You got to meet this kid." Like we could tell immediately that this kid was going to be great with us because he was just so odd.
Right.
So yes, it bugs me that I don't know what it was I did that was so offensive, considering some of the ridiculous and outrageous shit we said to each other. But something I did, and I honestly, it just doesn't. You
don't know though, because
don't know.
he didn't tell you exactly what you said.
Just something I
might have misunderstood or misheard.
Whatever it was,
you don't know what it was.
But I really don't believe that's it. And I will tell you, I think he's just still bitter that we've had the audacity to get rid of him.
Now he had a job at IKEA when you got rid of him. For what it's worth, like he had another job.
He went to work for them,
but he was there before you let him go.
Was he?
For a while, yeah.
Yes, for a while. For a short while, yes.
But he was working at IKEA before you let him go.
I mean, as far as what he was doing for us once the pandemic hit, it was very little. You know, he was never booking the show. We always had somebody else like you or Amanda or Eileen do it. Mm-hmm. He was our technical producer, and yet there was nothing really left for him to technically produce. And yet we kept him on for a long time.
So we talked about Fred yelling at me after the 2019 episode of Toronto Mic'd.
I don't recall.
Okay, and then shortly thereafter, you and I had the brunch, and then I became producer of Humble and Fred.
Yes, I have no recollection of anything you're saying.
So this is pre-pandemic because we're in 2019 here.
Yes.
So when the
pandemic... Is that how long it's been?
Yeah, 2019.
But when did we fire the radio stations?
2020, I want to say.
Okay.
So 2020, though... When March 2020, when we got the orders to we can't hang out in the same room together, essentially, we moved it to Zoom. So we moved it remotely. And I'm wondering, do you miss, like, because it's been there ever since. So the show is now Fred, wherever he'll be at his trailer, or maybe he'll be in Brampton, and you'll be in Mexico. You could be anywhere, but you're in South Etobicoke. But now you're not in the same room anymore. Do you miss recording with Fred and Dan in person?
Not really. I hesitated only because I don't think so anymore. I mean, I found it strange for a very short time. I don't anymore. It's kind of, you become used to it.
5 years.
Yeah. I was a broadcaster since the time I was 17 years old in a studio with other people. But for the last 5 years, I haven't been, except the odd time I'll do something like this, or, when we do our shows on location at Kelsey's. But, what about, I would ask you, like you did it remotely. I know you would much rather do this.
I typically, not for everybody, because there's exceptions, but I typically will say no to remotes. Like I actually come to the basement, or we just won't do this episode. So I'm really sort of really big on the in-person conversations and the energy, but partly because there's an energy feed being like in the same room as somebody.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
That when I'm on Zoom, I actually they aren't memorable to me. Like I can barely remember they happened. I don't feel I have the same connection. I just personally, for me, myself and I want to be in the same room as my guest whenever possible. And sometimes it's not possible, obviously. And if I want to talk to somebody badly enough and they're never going to be in my basement, obviously I will connect via Zoom or whatnot. But I much prefer this, and I'm glad you're here.
Well, I'm happy to that you asked me. I can tell you, though, I've done a program with Fred Patterson since I was a kid. Yeah. So I don't need to be in the same room with him for us to have a vibe. Mm-hmm. We've established the vibe of our relationship is well established. And yeah, when we did the show a few months ago together at Kelsey's with Dan sitting next to us, and it's fun, but the pandemic, and I've said this on the show, so it's not new, but the pandemic disrupted a lot of people's lives, including our own. But in our case, I think it actually extended the life of the show, because Fred Patterson was going to start going away all winter. And yes, I really wasn't at a point where I was starting to do that yet. So I was going to be basically doing the show myself or doing Fred on Skype or Zoom. This was we were having those discussions
right
before I'd ever heard of Zoom. So, yeah, the pandemic showed us very quickly that we could do the show without being in the same room.
And everybody's doing it now. And your listeners appreciate the fact that the life of the Humble and Fred show has been extended, because I think you're 100% right. I think Fred wanted to, spend more time in warmer climates during the winter. And I think that he didn't want to do that 417. What is the name of that highway? Anyway, he's coming from Brampton, and it was a
410.
410. That's
the 417.
What is the 417? Is there a 417?
The 417.
Maybe that's the new one they're building. I don't know.
Maybe it is.
But the 410, I think absolutely this saved, in a way, it saved the Humble.
Oh, absolutely it did. And then when I started going away,
yeah,
and we started to broadcast in different countries at the same time,
right?
It was like perfect for us. And we're going to continue, like in about, 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks or whatever, October 17th. Is that the actual date? I can never get it right. But October 16th or 17th will mark the beginning of our 15th year. And I had this thought the other day, too. I was going to mention it to him that we've been broadcasting as a podcast longer than we ever did as a morning show.
That's
on the edge. Not all together.
Yeah, because you showed up in 89 and you were gone in like 2000. You went to Mojo.
No, check this out. So longer
maybe.
than we were at the edge. Not longer than, 89 to 9. So I started with him in the August of 89. Mm-hmm. Then I left in May of 91. So let's call that 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was gone to CKFM, which became The Mix, for about 17 months. And I came back in August of 1992, and we were on the edge until 2001, and we were on the Mix together until 2005. So if you go 92 to 2005, it's 13 years, plus the two before is 15. We're definitely longer than we were on the edge.
Wow.
But at the end of next year, we will have been podcasting as long as we were broadcasters on terrestrial radio together.
Are you 100% done with terrestrial radio?
Yes. Yeah, I can't imagine. I go on, Wolfgang Klein has a show on AM 640. Great guy, former sales guy at the Edge, and become a very successful.
He hosted you at that reunion.
Right.
I do know about this.
Well, he's asked me to host his show a couple times, and I wasn't able to, but I've been a guest on it. So something like that, once in a while I would do, or, if somebody at Zoomer Radio said, hey, do you want to do, fill in once in a while? I would do that for sure.
Because you are a bit of a survivor. Like if you look at all your competitors or other morning shows that, you had in the 80s and the 90s and into the 2000s, like the fact you still have a show. I even took down a quick list of the people you outlasted, but you guys are survivors.
Let me see if I can guess. So you've got the list there in front of you?
I got a list I put together, yeah.
Okay. Don Daynard, Roger Ashby, Rick Hodge.
Yeah.
Billy and Jean. Billy and Jean. Jesse and Jean. Brother Jake.
Yeah. So Rob Christie.
Jerry Forbes was on at the same time as us. Did I mention Daynard already?
You mentioned Don Daynard with Aaron Davis,
of course.
Yeah. Bob McGee.
Yeah.
At some point. Stu Jeffries is still there.
Yeah, he's still there.
Of course, he's still on Boom doing well. But Mike Cooper.
Yeah, Cooper.
Darren B. Lamb.
And the great Voldemort Derringer.
John Derringer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, even for a little while, Don Burns was on Energy 108 for a little while.
Yep.
Was a morning show host. Tom Rivers, of course.
Yeah, Rivers was still doing it when we started.
Yeah, Dick Smythe. Ben McVie, do you remember this name?
I don't, but and Wally Crowder was a morning guy when I started here.
Scruff Connors.
Scruff, yeah.
So, I mean, this is a long list of you've outlasted. Now, the last survivor, it's interesting as we say goodbye here because you had a relationship, if I remember correctly, you had a relationship with her in Calgary way before there was a Humble and Fred show. But Marilyn Dennis, and about a year ago, she did what I call like this power move where she got her friend David Corey to become the co-host. So now it's Marilyn Dennis, but it's sort of like Marilyn Dennis calls the shots at Chum. Yeah. But she, other than her, basically, you guys are the survivors.
Yeah, Marilyn and I go back a long way.
Yeah.
And at one point, Marilyn in Calgary, because she didn't like where she was working, and she liked my morning show at the time. And I remember her talking to me about, was there some way that we could work together? And I thought, it's so funny because she's become so successful. She is the highest paid, I'd say more than anybody, and I mean this, anybody in broadcast, television or radio in Canada.
Wow.
She's the highest paid.
Wow.
Like she makes, I don't know what Shulman makes, but I know she makes more than any of the local anchors. Anybody.
So okay.
So and I don't know what the
John
national,
Moore, for example.
Pardon me?
More than like a John Moore.
Oh, Marilyn?
I'm just saying. I'm asking.
Oh my God. She makes. Listen, I love John Moore, and John. I have an idea of what category he's in, which is a nice category, John Moore. Yeah. But it ain't Marilyn. It ain't Marilyn Dennis money.
No, I believe you are absolutely correct. How was this for you, Humble Howard? Your return, you haven't been here since like 2021 or something. How was this?
Well, I had a great time. I don't know what people will get out of this other than, this Humble Howard whining
we get to know you a little better.
Humble Howard. Hey, is here Humble Howard's on with Toronto Mike. What an a-hole.
We don't need an agenda. Like, we're just literally shooting the breeze.
I appreciate it, man.
Here.
I love it over here.
Shooting the breeze. And we didn't even get into all the stuff. We didn't talk about Charlie Kirk, for example, and America and all these things.
You know what? America is broken. Can't be fixed.
Would you go there for pleasure? Like, would you make a trip to the United States for pleasure?
I had this conversation, if we can, just briefly, with somebody. The other day I had with somebody that owns some property down there, and they said, what am I supposed to do? Sell my place? I go, no. You use America for what it can do for you. And I said, if I had an opportunity, a famous golf teacher, had a chance to take a lesson with somebody and it was in North Carolina or something, I would go. But I'm just not planning to go there anytime soon. What about you?
No. Control your dogs, America. You can't invite us to your house until you control your dogs. That's what I would say about that.
I think that's very wise.
You're biking? We're on our way out here.
I do some biking, yeah.
But you bought an e-bike.
Love the e-bike.
So get you out
difference. No, I do. I love it. I love it. I can't do what you do. You do like 45K a day.
I did 30 this morning.
Yeah, of course.
And I'll do another 30 later.
You know what I should have done? If I had an appointment, I had something going on. It was a golf thing just before I came over here. I should have rode my bike.
Yeah.
What a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I mentioned Monica has to spend 4 days downtown now, and she bought an e-bike to get to and from work, and she wasn't going to do it with the old pedal-powered bicycle. So I think if it gets you out there...
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of the e-bike, even though it's not for me personally because I like the pedal power.
What is this? Is this the playing out theme?
Yeah.
I like this. It's cool.
Yeah, this is a cover of Rosie and Gray by Rob Pruce from the Spoons.
All right,
Last question here, and then I'm going to read the outro.
We're doing questions?
No, just curious.
Yeah, go ahead.
About cannabis. How often do you smoke weed these days?
I smoke it every day.
But you took a break when you had the heart issue, right?
Yeah, I took a 2-year break, but I don't smoke it during the day. Like, I'm not stoned now,
at night?
Even though you might think I am. No, I smoke it. I describe it this way. It's like some people would have a glass of wine after dinner or with dinner. That's kind of like me. I never really smoke it until, I'm all done everything, and it's like 7:30, and I have a couple of puffs. I might have another puff before I go to sleep, but that's about it.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,762nd show.
Thank you, Toronto Mike.
Go to TorontoMike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. Much love to all who made this possible. That is patrons like you. Go to patreon.com/Toronto Mike and become a member today. Great Lakes Brewery. Enjoy your hop pop, Howard.
Thank you.
Palma Pasta. Don't leave without your delicious lasagna. Toronto's Waterfront BIA. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Blue Sky Agency and Ridley Funeral Home. See you all. Who's coming up next? I got Lauren Honickman and then Ben Rayner. Lots of fun happening later this week. See you all then.